Hello, people of the internet, it's Amanda, and for today's episode, we're here to talk about episode 2 of Miman Keisatsu Midnight Runner starring Hirano Sho and Nakajima Kento. And the thing with this one is, I finally did my research on the original Korean version. Not unlike when I watched the first episode, is I wanted to see the first episode with a fresh perspective on it without really knowing much about how similar or how different is it from the original material that was referenced from. But then now at that we enter the second episode, I wanted to look more into it to find out where they're taking the narrative. And from what I concluded, so the first episode up until the third episode, which is going to air next week, is something that really encapsulates what the movie is about. Now, I'm pretty excited as to where they're taking the story after that because they don't have anything to reference from. But with that said, it's just something that's pretty refreshing in a way. And I watched a couple of clips and I noticed like how they did follow some of the main themes of the Korean movie, but still made it their own in terms of characterization, in terms of how they're creating the chemistry between the two characters, Kai and Jiro. And this one, it really developed, I think, specifically for episode 2 as compared to how it is with episode 1, where it's all about introductions and stuff like that. Now, with that said, so since this is a recap slash review slash reaction video to the second episode, so there are going to be spoilers. Now, if you're pretty much okay with that, then let's just go ahead and do this. Now, let's start off with discussing what the plot is for this particular episode. So it opens up as usual, same with episode 1, with what's the arc going to be like. So we see a woman who is being detained somewhere in a very seedy and shady place, and there's a guy who has a syringe in hand, and basically, so that encapsulates what the case is going to be like for this particular episode. And then before we even find out more about it, it shifts back into the academy life of Jiro and Kai, who are now a lot more closer than they are in the first episode. And it really shows us the juxtaposition between their characters, where Kai is really more of the intellectual type of character and Jiro is more on the physical, the brawny side of things. So they excel in two different types of the training. Was this one part where everybody was doing an exam, and one of the questions is that what are the things to be included in conducting an investigation, and then the correct answer is more of like the crime scene, the witness, the evidence, etc, etc, etc. But Jiro's reply was more of like passion, guts, and giving it your all, which really shows as to what his character is like. He's more of like a sensing type of character than an intuitive one, which really provides a good balance between his character and Kai's character. Now, one of their classmates, started to like get back at them because Jiro was taunting that classmate when Kai was the one who got the correct answer in one of their like lecture sessions. So the other classmate sort of like clapped back by showing off his very pretty girlfriend, and that sort of like ignited these young men to go ahead and try out a dating app just so they can score dates as well. However, it didn't work quite well with both of them, so they wanted to go on a double date and they were pretty excited about it, but their dates didn't show up. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't understand because I would definitely show up if I end up on a double date with these two. Because of that, so they're pretty sad about it and they decided to just wander off because they have the rest of the day off. And then that's when they spotted Kamishirai Shimone's guesting, who plays Ami-chan, and she looks absolutely different as compared to her other roles. Like we've always known her to play very nice, very bubbly, very like girly type of characters, but for this one specifically, she definitely has a sexier vibe to her, and she caught the eye of our two main boys, so they started to really try to catch her attention, mainly because their dates failed, but because of that they witnessed her getting kidnapped because of what happened to them in episode 1, where they almost got reprimanded because they took action on their own and didn't really report it. What they did was they reported the incident immediately. However, because of certain circumstances, like the detectives and the police that they reported to weren't able, like told them that, you know, they were going to get back to the case, so it was pushed away. And so because they figured that, you know, it might be too late if they wait for that response, so they obviously they wandered off and investigated on their own. And it was a lot of it was just a bunch of like really funny events of them trying to figure out what's happening. But it reaches the pivotal point where they pin down what exactly is happening. And I absolutely love how they transition from like majorly comedy to action for this particular episode. There are a lot of like action scenes that were involved, and at the same time, like it's a combination of both, you know, from being hysterical to something that's really intense and pretty exciting. And found myself really elated during some of the parts where there are fight scenes. One of the things that I absolutely found funny was during a chase scene where Jiro was about to like walk across an apartment while he was chasing someone, and the very Asian thing to do is take off his shoes, run off in the middle of the apartment. When he reached the veranda, he wears his shoes again and then continues on with the chase. And I felt like that was so Asian, and it's so funny because you really can't enter the house with your outside shoes on. So I don't know, I was just pretty amused by that particular detail. And basically a lot of the things in this episode definitely stepped it up even more as compared to what happened in episode 1. This ended on a cliffhanger as expected because it's more of like a two-part thing. And again, I feel like that's necessary mainly because it is the main arc of the movie that the drama is referencing, and it would just be unfair to sort of like pass by other details to make it shorter into just one episode. So it's understandable why they chose 2 episodes for this particular arc. And I'm pretty excited because it seems like a very interesting development in a way. And overall, so my favorites probably from this particular episode is number 1, so seeing Monet in a guest role, and she's really like, she even shifted her voice, I think, for this very different role, which I absolutely love. And I don't know, it's just kind of exciting to see a lot of actors that you enjoy watching in one scene or in one drama together. So even if it's just a guest role, I'm really happy that it's not just 1 episode but 2 episodes for me to see her in. Number 2, Hirano Sho's expressions for this particular episode is absolutely like, if you scroll through Twitter, most of the screen caps are from his facial expressions from the episode because he's so funny. He goes all out with his expressions, and he can shift from that to being really soft and sentimental whenever and emotive whenever a scene calls for it, and then he could also play off like very intense scenes, which is kind of nice. And I think that's also one of the things that I like about him is he's unafraid to play off very uncool or very funny expressions, and he just goes all out with it because I feel like that resonates really well with his personality as well in real life. So it makes him play these types of characters effectively because it doesn't feel like it's just a character, you know. It feels very real, like the sincerity of being jittery, of being a ditzy type of character. So it's so perfectly portrayed, doesn't look very off or something like that, which I absolutely love. It's funny because a lot of people were saying like, how can he look like this and then look like this as well? And I don't know, like I feel like that really shows how he's getting better and better at this whole like acting thing. But I think maybe that's just my biases talking, because if in case you don't know, I absolutely adore him. But anyways, Another thing that I absolutely love about this is starting to build up on more of the action scenes that we're really hoping for a police drama, because episode 1 it's really more of just a build up of introducing us to these characters and stuff like that, so we never really saw much of that. But now that we've started with episode 2, so I feel like we are going to see more and more of it as we go along through the rest of the episodes. Another thing about this is I feel like it just really works as to how the chemistry between Kento and Sho is like initially already. So the more that we see them, the more it's really believable. You know, because some actors like they play off together as friends, but it definitely feels just acting. Whereas for this one, you know, there are a lot of like, even in the silliest of scenes, they bounce off each other really nicely, and they absolutely, you know, like that and enjoy that with this as well, because the chemistry is definitely there between the two leads, and it's something that the audience also, it also resonates well with the audience, because it did, like, the episode trended again along with the names of their characters, trended again in Twitter Japan. So it just proves to show that a lot of people are really looking or watching out for this. And I feel like majority of that is really founded on the initial chemistry or the promise that this duo was teased about when the series was just being introduced. What else? I think this one definitely, I think as well, because the plot of this is a lot more intense or a lot more quote-unquote relatable as to some events that's happening in real life. Like, it talks about trafficking as compared to like the first episode, where that, again, I've said this in my review in the first episode, that one was really weird. It was fun to watch, but it was weird. But for episode 2, it felt a bit more grounded and real, and something that, you know, we know is happening in real life, and therefore there's this feeling of familiarity to it. And I don't know, I feel like bottom line is I'm just pretty excited as to how episode 3 is gonna go, because from what I've read from the official synopsis that NTV released for episode 3, that's where they're going to zoom in on Kai wanting to get more training because he felt like he was inadequate on the whole physical fights, brawnness type of aspect of being a police. So we're gonna see more of the two of them training, and at the same time, again, taking matters into their own hands, which is, I think, the core of how their relationship is like for the entire drama. So I'm pretty excited about that. And yeah, so tell me down in the comments below what you think of this episode, if you've seen it already, if you're pretty excited about the next episode, stuff like that. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel and you would want to hear more from me, please hit subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you again soon in a new one.